Welcome to Sleepy Tales. My name is Mateus, and before we begin today's story, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to our channel and leave a comment below saying, "I'll sleep well tonight." Now, sit back, relax, and let's dive into tonight's tale. It was a crisp autumn day when Tom and Sarah pulled up to their new home in the small town of Millville. The house was an old Victorian with a wraparound porch and a sprawling backyard that backed up to a dense forest. Tom had inherited some money from his grandmother and convinced Sarah to move away from the bustling city to start a new life together in a quieter, more idyllic setting. As they started to unpack their belongings, Tom couldn't help but feel a sense of unease about the house. The rooms were large and airy, but there was something about the creaking floorboards and the flickering lights that made him feel like they were being watched. Sarah, on the other hand, was enamored with the place. She loved the ornate details and the way the sunlight filtered through the trees in the backyard. She spent hours exploring the house, taking note of all the little quirks and hidden nooks. But as the days wore on, Tom's unease grew into something more palpable. He started hearing strange whispers coming from the forest behind their house. At first, he tried to brush them off as his imagination, but they only grew louder and more insistent with each passing night. Sarah, meanwhile, was blissfully unaware of her partner's growing unease. She threw herself into decorating their new home, hanging pictures and arranging furniture with a keen eye for detail. Tom tried to put on a brave face, but the whispers were starting to take a toll on his mental state. He was constantly on edge, jumping at shadows and avoiding the woods at all costs. One night, Sarah went out to meet some new neighbors for a welcome party. Tom, feeling too anxious to socialize, decided to stay home and watch TV. As he flipped through channels, he heard the whispers again. This time, they were louder than ever before. He couldn't make out what they were saying, but the voices sounded like they were right outside the window. Tom jumped up from the couch and peered outside, but there was no one there. He tried to shake it off, telling himself it was just his imagination, but the feeling of dread persisted. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. Tom hesitated for a moment, then cautiously made his way to the entrance. As he opened the door, a gust of wind blew in, making the candles on the nearby table flicker and dance. "Hey, Tom," said one of their new neighbors, a friendly woman named Lisa. "Is Sarah here?" Tom's heart sank. Sarah wasn't with her, and he suddenly realized that he had no idea where she was. Tom's mind raced as he tried to think of where Sarah could be. He hadn't heard from her since she left for the party, and he couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. As he spoke to Lisa, he tried to keep his voice steady and nonchalant, but he knew he was failing miserably. "I'm sorry, Lisa," Tom said, his voice shaking slightly. "I thought Sarah was with you guys." Lisa looked at him with concern. "No, we haven't seen her since she left here." "Are you okay?" Tom's anxiety was getting the best of him. "No, I'm not okay. Something's wrong, I can feel it. I have to go find her." Without another word, Tom grabbed his jacket and headed out into the night. The whispers from the forest had grown louder and more insistent, and he felt as though he was being pulled towards the woods. He tried to shake it off, telling himself that he was just being paranoid, but the feeling of unease only intensified. As he trudged deeper into the forest, Tom's mind started to play tricks on him. Shadows danced along the tree trunks, and the rustling of leaves sounded like footsteps. He tried to stay focused on finding Sarah, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching him. Eventually, he stumbled upon a clearing in the woods. In the center of the clearing, there was a small cottage that looked like it had been abandoned for years. Tom's heart sank as he realized that Sarah must have gone inside. He cautiously approached the cottage, calling out Sarah's name. There was no answer. He pushed open the door and stepped inside, his heart pounding in his chest. The interior of the cottage was dark and musty, with cobwebs clinging to every surface. As Tom searched for Sarah, he noticed that the whispers had stopped. The silence was deafening, and he felt a shiver run down his spine. Suddenly, he heard a noise from upstairs. He cautiously made his way up the creaky staircase, trying not to make a sound. As he reached the top of the stairs, he saw Sarah standing in the middle of the room, her back to him. "Sarah?" Tom called out. Sarah slowly turned around, revealing that her face was completely devoid of emotion. Tom took a step back, feeling a sense of dread wash over him. "Tom," Sarah said, her voice low and hollow. "I'm sorry." Tom tried to back away, but he found that his feet were rooted to the spot. He felt a strange energy coursing through him, making it impossible to move. Suddenly, Sarah lunged forward, her eyes flashing with an otherworldly light. Tom felt a sharp pain in his chest, and everything went black. When he woke up, he was lying on the forest floor, with no memory of how he got there. His mind was foggy, and his body felt weak and unsteady. As he struggled to his feet, he realized that something had changed inside him. The whispers were gone, replaced by a strange, all-consuming hunger. Tom stumbled through the woods, his hunger growing stronger with every step. He didn't know what was happening to him, but he knew that he needed to feed. As he stumbled out of the forest and onto a nearby road, he saw a car approaching in the distance. Without thinking, he stepped out into the road, his eyes fixed on the driver. The car screeched to a halt just inches away from him. The driver got out of the car and started yelling at Tom, but all he could hear was the sound of the driver's heartbeat. He lunged forward, sinking his teeth into the man's neck. As Tom fed on the driver, he felt a sense of euphoria wash over him. It was like nothing he had ever experienced before. The hunger inside him was satiated, at least for the moment. But as he looked down at the lifeless body of the driver, he realized that he had become a monster. He didn't know how it had happened or why, but he knew that he could never go back to his old life. For weeks, Tom roamed the countryside, feeding on anyone he could find. He tried to resist the urge to feed, but it was like a drug, and he couldn't resist the temptation. Eventually, he was caught by the police and taken to jail. As he sat in his cell, he realized that there was no hope for him. He was a monster, and he would always be a monster. But as he sat in his cell, he heard a voice whispering to him. It was a voice he recognized, a voice from the whispers in the woods. "Tom," the voice said, "you are not alone." Tom didn't know what it meant, but he felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe he wasn't alone in this. Maybe there were others like him, struggling with the same curse. And so, Tom spent the rest of his days searching for others like him, hoping to find a community that could help him control his hunger. He knew it was a long shot, but he had nothing left to lose. As the years went by, Tom's search led him to the darkest corners of the world, where he met others like him, struggling with the same curse. Together, they formed a community of monsters, helping each other to control their hunger and survive in a world that would never accept them. And as Tom looked out at the world from his place among the monsters, he knew that he had finally found a place where he belonged. Thank you for listening to this bedtime story, and remember, if you struggle with falling or staying asleep at night, click on the first link in the description for the ultimate solution to your problem. Now, choose one of these two videos and continue on our journey in the world of bedtime stories.